I think there can be something magical that happens when you look at a piece of land and you ask a question in your own head, or you even, if you want to go very deep, ask a question of the land and say, what would you like to be? And in most cases, not in all cases, there are other ecosystems that are equally important, but in many cases, that land really wants to be a forest, or it really wants to have vegetation on it that isn't being controlled.
I thought that was a really interesting thing to think about, what Catch and Cleary said there from Pocket Forests. I hadn't thought about that before. So, a nice way to start off this Climate and Nature Summit Series workshop, Roots of Change. My name is Patrick Kerwin. Thank you so much for being here. I'm a science, biology, and sustainability teacher, and I work with the Irish Schools Sustainability Network. Today we're going to be looking at what's happening with forestry in Ireland. We're going to do a quick quiz. We're going to look at some of the heroes who are taking action around Ireland and mobilising others to taking action. And lastly, we have an invitation for you too to take action in your school or at home. Right, let's get the thinking caps on. So we know that our cities are becoming warmer. Now the trees on the left and the canopies on the right are doing similar jobs. So you've got 15 seconds to have a very quick chat with the person beside you. What is that job that they're doing? And why use trees over canopies? What can the trees do that the canopies can't do? 15 seconds, get chatting now. Five seconds. Okay, so the trees and the canopies are both providing shade, but we say that the trees are a nature-based solution. Nature can be a solution to the problems that we are facing. But the trees are so much better than using canopies because the trees can provide a habitat for biodiversity. They can actually provide greater shade. They can make the ground more spongy. They produce oxygen. They filter our air. There's tons of things that the trees do, including absorbing carbon dioxide and storing carbon in their roots and their trunk and their branches that canopies can't do. And also, we know that we have to use a lot of energy to make canopies, and they have a certain lifespan. So, better to use nature when you can. This is a really interesting thermal image. So you can see under the trees, it's 34.5 degrees, but the ground temperature outside of the trees is 61. So they're doing a really, really, really good job. This is a really interesting graphic. So it shows you the amount of land area covered by forests in European countries. So you've got 5 seconds to see where is Ireland on this league table. We are third from the bottom. We've got 11% tree cover in Ireland. I wonder, was that a big surprise to you? Okay, so here's a bit of a challenge for you. You've got a plantation on your left and you've got a native forest on your right. I want you to chat with the person beside you and decide which is better for biodiversity and explain why. Remember, biodiversity is simply nature. Bio is life, diversity is difference or variety. And ecosystems are better if they've got a large variety of life within them. So have that chat. You've got 30 seconds. Off you go, starting now. Halfway. So in Ireland, we've got about 11 to 12% tree cover. So 10% of that is plantation. And these are just monocultures. We're growing one type of tree, mainly Sitka spruce. It's a conifer. And then native forest, we've got about 1 to 2% native forest in Ireland. So native forests are excellent for biodiversity because you can see there's lots of different types of plants in these forests. So these native forests, and we call them forests because a forest is full of life. And you can see there's lots of layers here. We've got the bottom layer, the middle layer, and we've got the canopy. So there'll be a huge variety of different mammals and birds and insects in these forests. Plantations are dead zones. They've got very little life in them. You can see it's completely different. There's nothing really growing on the forest floor. You don't have those same kind of layers. Right, so off we go. What's happening with forestry in Ireland? We've got Foghlú from Hometree to discuss this. And Hometree is an amazing organisation. You might be able to do some volunteering with them. Check them out. They establish native woodland in Ireland, conserve permanent native woodland. They encourage biodiversity. They are stewards, which means they take care of the land and take care of biodiversity in our forests. And they're trying to nourish a new way of us relating to nature, conservation and rehabilitation.
Hi, so my name is Foghlú. I am the development lead for Hometree Charity. So I want to tell you just a little bit of context about where Irish forestry is at now. And I think to help explain that, it's good to go backwards a bit in time, maybe a long way back in time. 10,000 years ago, Ireland was just coming out of an ice age, and trees were starting to colonise the landscape. And by about 8,000 or 9,000 years ago, we would have had full tree cover across the whole landscape. When the first humans arrived, they were slow to remove the trees at the start, but once they started working with agriculture and working with iron, they started clearing the trees pretty quick. This led to a scenario that by the time the Irish state was founded in 1921, most of our trees were gone. We were down to around 1% tree cover. At that point, the Irish state wanted to increase the tree cover, but it was kind of more focused on the rural economy than restoring ancient native woodlands. And so we started planting a lot of conifers, and we planted them on the worst lands, primarily our bogs. And we kept going right through the last century with that process, bringing us to around 12% tree cover in Ireland. And that's where we're at now. We have 12% tree cover. And for various different reasons, the state wants to bring that up to 18%. Some of them are about the rural economy, timber production, some are about climate change, and to a certain extent they're about biodiversity. So the state did a lot of the planting up until the mid-90s. It bought land and it planted forests, but for different reasons it can no longer do that. So the new system incentivizes landowners, primarily farmers, to plant woodlands, and how they do that is they pay for the trees to be planted, and they pay an ongoing premium to the farmer, or payment to the farmer, for 15 or 20 years, in the hope that after that the woods will stand on their own 2 feet economically. They've had moderate success with that, but unfortunately in the last 5 or 6 years various things have happened. There was disease issues, there was issues with farmers being paid by the government, there was issues with getting felling licenses to manage your trees, and farmers have lost a lot of faith in the system. So even though last year in 2023 a brand new package, a 1.3 billion euro package, was brought out to incentivize farmers to create more woodlands, farmers are very cold feet at the moment, and it's going to take a lot of encouragement and promotion for them to get back on board. One element that the state has probably failed in is the state is incentivizing planting forests, but there's a huge amount of potential in facilitating forests to spread themselves or plant themselves, and that's something at Hometree we'd love to see more support coming through for. So hopefully that gives you a good snapshot of where we've come from with forestry and where we're at right now. Thanks.
Right, on to the quiz. So let's see how much you learnt from Ray, and do you understand why forests are so important for us? Now there's 17 points going here, so grab a paper and a pen, and it's going to be really fast paced. So let's get started. Okay, you have got, I'm going to give you a minute, I'm going to be generous. You've got 1 minute to potentially get 5 points. Let's see how you get on. You're halfway. Okay, so question 6. You've got 2 potential points here, so you might want to write down 2 letters. Trees help address climate change by, and you've got 10 seconds to answer this. This is very fast-paced. Question 7. This is true or false. So for speed, because you've only got 30 seconds to do this, you can write down A, B, C, D, and E in your copies, and you can write T for true or F for false. You've got 30 seconds to go through these. Off you go. There's no hanging around here, guys. Question 8. You've got 10 seconds for this. What percentage of the world's largest cities rely on protected forest areas for a large proportion of their drinking water? So choose A, B, or C. Question 9. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to guess this. How many acres of trees can provide the oxygen requirements of 12 people for 1 year? 5 seconds. Just write down a number. Last one. Question 10. Can you name these 3 trees? So you can write down A, B, and C in your copy and write the names of the trees beside them. And I'm going to give you 15 seconds for this. This is one of my favourite trees. It's the hawthorn tree. I love the flowers in spring, and it provides lots of food for nature in the autumn and winter. So let's go through the answers, and we're going to be very quick with these answers. So get your pen ready and start ticking off what you got right. The first one, after the last ice age, about 8,000 to 9,000 years ago, what was tree cover like in Ireland? Well, most of Ireland was covered in trees. So give yourself a tick if you got that correct. What sped up the removal of trees in the Irish landscape? Ray was saying it was when humans started working with iron and when we started working with agriculture or developing our agricultural techniques and practices. What type of trees did the state start to plant? Conifers. So remember we were talking about that Sitka spruce. Who is being incentivized right now to plant woodlands? Farmers. Excellent. So in 2023, how much money did the government pledge to give farmers to plant more woodland? Did you get it? 1.3 billion. So how many ticks did you get here? Hopefully you got 5. Question 6. There's 2 marks going for this. Trees help to address climate change by absorbing carbon dioxide and storing carbon in their leaves, their trunks, and their roots. Question 7, true or false? Let's see how you get on. So, trees increase flooding. That was false. Give yourself a mark if you got that right. Trees actually decrease flooding, so they help us to avoid flooding. Trees make soil. That's true. 2 awesome reasons to plant trees in your gardens. Trees increase soil erosion by being washed, and soil erosion means soil being washed or blown away. That's actually false. Trees decrease soil erosion because they help to keep it in place. So trees are really, really, really important. Trees add nutrients to the soil. That's true. And looking at trees reduces our blood pressure and stress-related hormones in our body, cortisol and adrenaline. That's actually in fact true. 5 reasons to plant trees in our schools, in our communities, in our own gardens at home. What percentage of the world's cities rely on protected forest areas for a large portion of their drinking water? 33%. How many acres of trees can provide the oxygen requirements of 12 people for a year? 1 acre. Name these trees. So A was holly, marked for that. B was hawthorn, marked for that. And C was oak, another mark for that. So how many did you get out of 17? I'll give you 10 seconds to tot up your marks. This is the really awesome part of this session where we look at the heroes around Ireland who are taking lots of action and encouraging the rest of us to partake too. So enjoy this.
Hi, I'm Brian here at Wildacres Nature Reserve. Wildacres just come out from beneath the undergrowth here. Wildacres Nature Reserve is an environmental social enterprise. Myself and my wife Gilly Taylor set up 6 years ago when we bought this 17.5 acres of land, which was heavily grazed wetland, devoid of just about all biodiversity. We've planted 13,000 native trees since, 2 kilometres of native hedgerow, 35 wildlife ponds. We have lots of wildlife features here and the place is teeming with biodiversity now. So it's wonderful. If we recreate the habitats and give nature space, it will bounce back.
Good friend Ash Conrad-Jones and I came across this idea called tiny forests, which is all about getting native trees and shrubs into very small urban areas. So we thought it was going to be ideal for our particular neighbourhood, and nobody else was doing it in Dublin. So we started talking to experts about how it was done and trialling with different plots. And now 4 years on, yesterday we just planted our 100th pocket forest in Dublin mainly, but also around Ireland. We've had great responses from the people we've worked with, the communities. Many people who've never had a chance to garden, never mind plant a tree before. And the excitement is always the same. It's always a thrill. The potential that you get from planting a tree and that sense of potential that this amazing thing is going to grow on past your lifetime and into somebody else's lifetime, hopefully, is just a wonderful thing to be able to do.
This is an example of how trees can be of huge benefit in a farming or agricultural context. This area was actually planted as a grove of trees in the previous GLOS scheme, and it has transformed this area into being the worst and wettest part of this field, with a complete kind of soil structure collapse, and now it grows quite a nice pasture underneath. We feel that we can let cattle in here for a short period. They can control the understory, they graze it down. They really enjoy being in here. It's lovely shelter and shade. Hot days in summer especially are brilliant to let cattle in here, and I feel like this is a no-brainer as far as developing this idea and having more trees across the farm landscape in a kind of silvopastoral context. Trees have huge benefits to restoring soil structure and helping water infiltrate a lot better with those deep penetrating roots.
The Plant Planet campaign is a campaign that we started in our school 3 years ago. It's a very simple, easy campaign and it was very successful. It was to get students to bring home trees and plant them in their own gardens. We got them to plant native trees and fruit trees like this one.
You don't need to own lots of land to reimagine your garden as a haven for wildlife, a store of food and carbon, and just a nice place to relax.
This year alone we planted 658 trees in our school, and in the last 3 years we've planted over 1,800 trees by parents and students in our school alone.
It's a fun campaign to run and a simple way to encourage people to take action. And you can even plant an orchard like this in your own school.
Hi, my name is Rachel Geary and I oversee the LEAF Learning About Forest programme, which is an international environmental education programme, and we also oversee An Cuil Beag, which is an initiative of LEAF Ireland. An Cuil Beag is Irish for little woodlands, and this is where we go into schools or communities and we plant little woodlands, small dense native woodlands, and we involve the students or community groups at every stage along the way. An Cuil Beag is an outdoor living classroom. So when we engage with the schools, we get the students involved in every step of the process. So they come out and they get their hands dirty, they do soil tests, they look at the different species that already are on the site. And one of our main goals is to get students interested in outdoors and learning about the outdoors.
Okay, so we've done lots, and now it's an invitation for you to take action. Right, there's a walk and debate that you can do with this workshop, but maybe you can want to come back to that later on if you don't have time for it right now. What you could do if you do have time and talk to your teacher about it is take a walk around your school. Bring out a piece of paper and a pen, note down what nature spaces you have, think about how you can improve them. You could do all this at home as well. And then come back and discuss some ideas. Maybe you're going to plant an orchard in your school, maybe a hedgerow, maybe you're going to plant native trees in the playground where you're at, so they're not off in the distance. And if you don't have much land or you've got concrete around the school, put them in big containers. Get An Cuil Beag Leaf in to basically put together a small forest, help you plant a small forest in your school. That would be such an incredible legacy for all students and staff to actually know what it's like to be in a small forest, because there's not lots of them around in Ireland. You have to go and really seek them out, what it's like to be in a native forest, not to walk in a plantation. And there is a fund from the Department of Education that comes out every September and October for up to 5,000. It's really easy to fill in the application form. So maybe if it's not something you can do this year, really plan for next year and think about what you want to do as a school. So on that note, I'm going to leave you with this slide at the very end, but I'm also going to leave you with the words, this little snippet from Catherine Cleary to end the session. Thank you so much for being part of the workshop. Really appreciate you being here.
And as humans, we've become very good at controlling our environment, mowing things and spraying them and making sure that they look the way that we feel they should look. But there's something very liberating, not least because it's a lot less work. There's something very liberating about letting our own environment do what it is that it would do if we weren't here. Just let nature be in charge for a little while and see what she can do. And that's where I think by doing that, you get a huge sense of hope, and you can witness, you can see it in your own garden or in your own community or in your own space. You can see how quickly nature fixes things and heals things and makes soil become more porous for rain and more able to sustain life, how birds and insects and animals arrive when you give them habitat, and how good that feels for us as people to watch that. There's great science showing that the more time we spend in nature, the better we feel and the happier we are. So there's so many wins to be had from rewilding or regenerating or letting nature take the lead. It's amazing.